Greetings, bandmates, and my monster enemies. Guys, I'm excited to be back with a book review. It's been too fucking long, let me tell you. And I am really glad that we get to come back with a bang, because this is maybe the best book I've reviewed on this channel. Maybe the best book I reviewed on this channel. It's a really fucking good book. But before we get into the book, I do want to make an announcement really quick about the reviews here on this channel. So, every good reviewer has their own system that they go by, their own criteria, and I've decided on mine. I thought about it. I said, this is how I kind of approach stories. This is kind of how I approach pleasure reading and how I analyze things. And I've put together a system that will be really effective for grading the book fairly on its merits and still allow plenty of room for opinion and that kind of stuff to shine through and make itself heard. So, a good objective quality measure as well as plenty of room for opinion. So, the way it works is every book starts out with 100%. I've said it before on my channel. I like going into books wanting to enjoy myself. I go into books expecting it to be a good read. So every book starts out with 100%. And I judge them based on 5 main categories. And those categories are, I have written down here, that's why I'm looking off camera, prose, plot, characters, message and symbolism is one category, and originality. Okay? Again, prose, plot, characters, message and symbolism, and originality. Okay? Each one of those categories has 100%. Okay? So let's just say the plot category loses 100%. So that means that every other category is 100%, but plot is 0%. So the total percentile for the book would be an 80% because it lost 20% of its total thing. You see, that makes sense? Everyone tracking? We all on board? Okay. All right. So, without further ado, let's get into Kings of the Wyld by Nicholas Eames. I hope I'm saying that right. Yeah, Nicholas Eames. I think so. Oh my god. So, first of all, the book is written past tense, mostly close third, but it kind of bleeds over into almost first person sometimes from the perspective of Clay Cooper, the primary POV. And I won't say the primary character or the main character or anything, because really the 5 people on this cover really share the spotlight. Like, Clay is kind of sort of the main character, but really this is a story about this group fundamentally. This group is Saga. They're a band of mercenaries, and the plot of the book is these guys were really big back in their day, and they kind of broke up over the years, and now one of them, his kid is in danger, and he gets the band back together to go save his kid. And it is as good as you think that has the potential to be, or better. This is a really good book. It starts off with the former leader of the band recruiting the guy that he kind of perceived as the leader. Okay, so the front man, the guy who was kind of the face of the mercenary group, goes to talk to the guy that he kind of always thought was the real backbone of the group. He's like, hey man, if you don't come back and help me get my daughter, none of the others will come with me. Okay? So he starts with him, and he just barely convinces him through kind of some really, really dumb luck kind of stuff. And they go on an adventure to recruit the others, and that takes up about half of the page time. Right around half the page time, we get the band back together. Okay? The next 200 pages are a wild ride of trying to journey through the Heartwyld, which is this insanely dangerous, mythical, and magical forest where there's all kinds of nasty, scary shit. The entire thing reads like a really, really fun D&D campaign that has an expert narrator, okay? That's kind of the feel I got from this book. The entire thing is well written. The prose are really good. So yeah, first of all, we're just going to we'll start with category 1, prose. I have some notes here that I want to share with you guys because this is really good. So let me go to my... So, just as an example of some of the beautiful writing, I took down 2 things that I thought really hit hard and were really beautiful examples of poetic prose. Because you know me, here on this channel, I talk a lot about poetic sounding prose. That's really important to me. I thought these were 2 choice examples. So, page 381. A puppet dancing beneath the hand of its own indomitable will. And right there he's talking about someone who's moving that really shouldn't be having the power to move, and this person is moving like a puppet dancing beneath the hand of its own indomitable will. I thought that's like, I love when people paint a vivid picture like that using $5 words in exactly the right way. $5 words as opposed to like 25-cent words, right? Like really good quality, good vocabulary words, right? And then to use it in such a poetic way where it sounds so good, where it just fits like a key. That's really indicative of top tier prose. And then another spot in the book, page 409, quote, hers was the hearth in which his soul burned. And if you watch my channel for any length of time, you know me, I'm a sucker for love. I absolutely love a good love story, and so that hits me. I know exactly how that feels, and I absolutely love the way it reads in the context of the rest of its surroundings in front of that line and in back of that line. It was beautiful. It was beautifully delivered. So, Nicholas Eames, I have no complaints about your prose. None. You get 100% on prose, sir. I like your voice. I like your style. And I think you have a great command of the language. So, 100% in prose. Next down the list, we have plot. And he is going to lose a little bit here. Only because it's one of those plot lines that it's like, the grand scheme plot line has been done to death, but it's done so well, and there's so many fun stops along the way, and he comes up with so many fun contrivances and coincidences that don't feel like they are. It's like because it feels so fun and fast-paced and fantastic that we don't even really think about the fact that it's kind of contrived or that it's kind of too much of a coincidence. We just go along with it because we're having such a good time, and it's not always easy to do that. So he only loses a little bit off the plot category, only because the guy recruiting his friends to go save the girl plot has been done to death. It's like every 80s action movie, right? So, sorry, I can't give you a full belly on the plot category, but I mean, because of the way you did it, because of how the whole thing read and the pacing was on point, and like I said, a lot of the stops we made along the way felt really, really fast-paced and fun. I was perfectly happy to read another iteration of getting the band back together to save the girl. It was a fun read, so I'm not mad about the recycled plot at all. So we're going to give 80% to the plot category. Next, characters. Nicholas Eames. Man, you know how to write some good D&D characters, man. This is the best D&D group you could ever want to campaign in. I hope someday I get to be part of a D&D campaign where we all kind of assume one of these roles and act vaguely like one of these characters. Like, this was such a fun group dynamic to read, and the villains were believable. There was interesting lore behind all the characters, and everyone felt believable and alive. And you hear me use those words a lot on this channel because that's what really matters. Does the character feel alive, or are they obviously a character in the story? Everyone here feels alive. I would 100% believe that this was a semi-real story, right? These were based on real people and roughly based on real events with fantastical bullshit added in, because everyone feels that real and alive. So, 100% on the characters. No complaints on them. The only thing that I don't like is that some of the characters, they just don't fit into the boxes I would normally want that character to fit into, if that makes sense. Like, there's certain things that when I read a character and they have certain traits and mannerisms and stuff like that, there's certain things I want for that character, and that's a me thing. It's not a reasonable thing to place on the author. It's not a reasonable thing to place on the characters. So that's a 100% a me thing, and so I'm not dinging the category for that. The characters surprised me, and there were some things about some of them that I didn't like, and that's not the author's fault or the story's fault. That's a me thing. So not dinging the characters on that at all. 100% in this category, and that's all I have to say about that. Next, message and symbolism. This is one of the places that I was really, really happy that I read this book, because he does message and symbolism really well. He has this beautiful, subtle theme throughout the story of facing your inner demons and choosing to be the monster or the man. And it shows up in several characters. And it's a consistent and well alluded to theme without slamming you over the head with it. And the message behind that theme that he goes with is, love will make you the man. Love will save you from being the monster. Love makes humans of us. That was the message behind that theme. And it blended well with his symbolism and the way he executed the symbolism in his prose. It was very well executed. I really, really enjoyed it. It was he did it differently with separate characters. He did it with internal dialogue with Clay. He did it with a split personality in another character. He did it with an alcohol problem in another character. And everywhere he did it, like I said, everywhere he showed this monster or man theme, it was believable and different than the last one, and so seamlessly sewn into the fabric of the story that you didn't notice it unless you have eyes for that thing. I have eyes for that kind of thing because of the mental health journey I've gone on over the course of my life, and because I'm an author and I use symbolism, and especially where it regards to man versus monster, that's a big part of my own story. So I naturally look for that kind of stuff. But a normal reader probably wouldn't even notice. It would just kind of live in their subconscious, which is what good messaging and symbolism does. It just you kind of absorb it, and it just kind of sits in your subconscious and marinates until it applies something until you find something in your life that it applies to, and it kind of hits you all at once. That's what good symbolism and storytelling does. So, 100% in messaging and symbolism. I thought it was really well done. And then, like I said, my fifth category is just overall originality for all the elements of the book. Is the story an original work, or did they kind of piggyback off of a lot of stuff that came before? And Don't get me wrong, there's not necessarily anything wrong with piggybacking off the stuff that came before, but we truly do need more originality in storytelling these days, and it's something that is in short supply, and I endeavor to. I could have been more original here, and I should have endeavored to be, but when I was writing it, that wasn't my main focus, but it will be in future projects. But back to Nicholas Eames and Kings of the Wyld. His originality was not nearly as high as it could have been, but it wasn't bad. He drew on a lot of existing lore, especially for monsters and especially for culture. He had his own cultures and societies that he dreamed up. Jungle juice break. But if you looked, you could clearly see the cultures and societies that he'd taken. Those the cultures in his book, you could clearly see what real world society and cultures they'd gotten their culture from. It was almost 1-to-1. Okay, so not hyper original there, but I'm guilty of the same thing, so I can't give him too much grief. So that's a little bit off the originality category. Then there's the fact he borrowed a lot of monster lore. That's a little bit off the originality category. And then there's the fact that he uses a lot of tropes, okay? Like, this book is really trope heavy. And if you follow my channel, you know I don't have a problem with trope heavy books. It's pretty much impossible to avoid being a trope heavy book, because like almost everything kind of is a trope at this point, right? Because of the very nature of what a trope is. But what he does manage to do is he subverts tropes and kind of does them in innovative, slightly interesting new ways. So he uses a lot of existing tropes, but he executes them really well and makes them fun to read. So I'm only dinging him a little bit on that. Then finally, any other miscellaneous elements, like there's character names, those are fairly original. Setting names I felt was pretty original. Magic abilities and the magic in the book was not too bad. Nothing like groundbreaking, but it didn't feel like super generic either, so that wasn't too bad. Overall, I'd give the originality category a 70%. Plenty of originality. Could have worked a little, definitely could have been more original if he'd really sat down and picked his brain and made it a point to do so. But it didn't. The fact that he borrowed existing lore didn't detract from the story. It didn't make it a less fun read. It just, he was just borrowing existing lore. And again, nothing wrong with that. He was just borrowing existing lore, like I said. And as a reader, I'm really starving to see more totally original content. I understand it's really hard to do, but at the same time, it's like, I'm giving you my money, and that's what I want. So can you guys try to crank that out? Please? Please, boss? Please, boss? So, guys, that's it. That's the whole shooting match. If you are looking for recommendations for something to read, check out Kings of the Wyld. This book is fan-freaking-tastic. I mean, it's so fucking good. It's so fucking good. I absolutely enjoyed it, and at some point, I will be buying and reviewing the sequel. Not sure when that will be, because I've got a bunch of other stuff here that I was actually supposed to review first. So, guys, yeah. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for checking out the review. If you haven't already, go follow me on some alternative socials, Odyssey, Minds, TikTok, that kind of stuff, in case someday my channel ends up nuked. I had a scare with that not too long ago, so if you like my content, you might want to be safe, make an Odyssey account, and just follow some of your other favorite creators on there too, because more and more people are making backup accounts on places like Odyssey and BitChute and Rumble, because big tech censorship and the aids of cancel culture. So, Just a thought. All right, guys. Until next time. Be well, my friends.